Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Virtual Executive Director Podcast. My name is Becky Caldwell, and I'm your host. I'm an executive coach for mission-driven leaders, and I serve as the actual executive director of the Virginia Highlands Festival in Abingdon, Virginia. So this week on the podcast, I had something different planned, and it seems like every other thing that we make plans for during this pandemic, those plans changed. So instead of the What We're Doing Now episode, which is still in the works for next week, instead, I want to bring you an interview with Kim Farris-Luke. Kim is a friend, and she is a sponsor of the Virginia Highlands Festival. Her business is a sponsor. And the reason I wanted to bring Kim in on a conversation is because she is a funeral director, which means she is an expert on grief, the grieving process, everything that you go through because of grief. And she also happens to be the first female president of Selected Independent Funeral Homes, which is a national association. I'm so proud to know her. I am so delighted that we are in the same community and that we had this opportunity to sit down and talk about grief. I know it sounds weird to say, right? Like, I was really delighted to talk about grief with her. But here's the thing. That mood swing that you seem to be unable to jump off of, that's because of grief. Our whole world is collectively going through a grieving process right now, and not just for the people who we've lost, but because of all of the other things that we've lost, the loss of independence, the loss of safety, feeling safe, the loss of freedoms, the loss of being able to hug your mom who maybe just lives a few blocks away. I mean, this is a big thing that we're going through globally. And I wanted to offer up some expertise. I wanted to share someone who I know is an expert in this to help us get through it. So without further delay, here is my conversation with Kim Farris-Luke. Okay, we are recording. I am here with Kim Ferris-Luke, and Kim is one of the co-owners of Farris Funeral Services. And I am Becky Caldwell, the executive director of the Virginia Highlands Festival in Abingdon, Virginia. And we are, at the moment of this recording, it is April 8th, 2020, and we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I don't know about you, but I have been super mood swingy. I have gone from like laughter, joy, optimism to everything is horrible all the time. And what I figured out about that is, I am grieving. That this looks and feels exactly like when I've lost a loved one. And that is why I wanted to bring Kim on to talk to us, because she is uniquely qualified to help us all through this grief right now. And so, Kim, I'm going to have you put yourself in context for everybody watching and listening. And then we're going to talk about this sort of global grieving process that we're going through. And then because I run a festival, I'd like to talk about when can we have fun? Like, when can we laugh again and get back to that sort of fun, joyous place? So, Kim, take it away. Tell us all about yourself.
Thanks, Becky. I appreciate you asking me to share in this conversation. So my name is Kim Ferris-Luke, and I, as you already said, I'm one of the owners of Farris Funeral Service in Abingdon, Virginia. And one of my primary roles through the years, my 28 years of being here actually, has been to provide grief support and education to the community. So that's a real passion of mine. And I certainly have learned so much over the years from the families that I've walked with through grief. Obviously, because of where I work, my focus has always been grief connected to a death, but the principles that I've learned, or the experiences of grief that I've learned about, are certainly universal, I think, and can definitely apply to losses of any kind. So that's why this is a really neat conversation to have, because I do believe that we are grieving. I think there's a collective mourning going on in our world, and I'm not just speaking about because of so many deaths. Tragically, there have been so many deaths, but it's not just about that. I think it's just the loss of life as we knew it. So I think it's a really good conversation to have. And I'm not an expert on anything, but I sure have learned a lot from folks, and so I'll share with you what I can, and it'll be a good conversation, I think.
Yeah, well, you say you're not an expert, but 28 years. I mean, you've clearly put in your 10,000 hours to
Yeah.
be an expert by now. Well, okay, let's first talk about how do we recognize that we're grieving and not just going crazy?
Right, right. Well, I think that the first thing I would share is that grief is a very natural, organic response to the loss of someone or something that we love. And so we all grieve. Every person, I think, is kind of part of our DNA, that we're going to grieve when we have a loss. Mourning is the outward expression of those inward feelings that we have. So I do believe that everybody grieves, but not everybody mourns, because I think we have a very mourning avoidant society, especially in North America. And I think that we don't know what to do with those emotions, so we tend to kind of push them away. But so I would say that when you look at what's going on in the world today, we have all lost so many things, and it's different for every person. Clearly, some have lost their jobs because their businesses have closed. Some are drawing unemployment. Some maybe don't qualify for unemployment because they were, like a sole proprietor, or someone who just was, self-employed in some way, like a gig worker or something. So, but we've lost things like that. We've lost our connections with our people. Like we can Zoom,
Oh my gosh, yes.
but it doesn't meet the need that we have to actually be able to touch and see and be face to face with people. It's an artificial way of connecting. And while I'm thankful that we have that and the opportunities for the technology, but it's just not the same thing. And so
Mhm.
I miss hugs, I miss being able to touch the people that I love, the people that don't live in my house. And so, we're missing that. We've lost, I think, a sense of connection, many of us, through our faith communities, where that was an essential part of our lives. And we're not able to do that now. And again, we can do it remotely, but it's not quite the same thing. We've lost just the freedom that comes with being able to go out and do what you want to do, be able to go walk on locally on the Creeper Trail. I mean, that broke
Yeah.
my heart when I saw that it was closed. I understand why, but to me, I always find solace in nature. So I can walk around my neighborhood, but I just miss being able to go to the places that used to really, really speak to my spirit and make me feel better. So I think if each one of us just kind of sat down and maybe not to bring upon more feelings of depression, but make a list of all the things that you used to be able to do that you cannot do now. I mean,
Mhm.
silly thing, even if it was silly, like I had a favorite brand of toilet paper, and now I can't. It's not even that, I can't even find toilet paper, much less the brand.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it seems silly, but those are like real losses. Certainly, nothing in the scheme of things compared to the more the deeper losses. I mean, loss of income,
Right.
loss of safety. I think that's just sort of an ambiguous loss. It's kind of hard to define what that means, but many of us feel just a real sense of our world is not what it used to be. And I never felt threatened, my health threatened when I walked into a grocery store, but now we have to think about that. So I think when you said, so how can we determine if we're feeling grief? I really do think all of us are feeling grief. It's a collective grief that we all will experience in our own unique ways. And I may be mourning or grieving about particular things that somebody else wouldn't be a big deal to them. But so I don't think we need to we don't really need to compare our losses and say that one's more important than the other, because when it's your grief, when it's your loss, it's a big deal. It's important. And so I do think that this is a very the field has been leveled. I mean, we all are experiencing loss in many, many ways.
So what I'm hearing is that we should just all assume we're grieving everybody right now.
I think that would be a pretty safe assumption.
Yeah.
You're grieving something, everybody has lost something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's freedom, that we've lost. So,
yeah. Oh, so, okay. So we're all going through this grief. And you defined grieving versus mourning, and one of the tools to mourn the loss would be to make a list of the things that you have lost. And then what do we do with that list once we have it?
Well, I think the reason I suggested that is I do think that that's a part of kind of naming what's happening to you. Like, what are the things that I've lost? If someone were to just ask me conversationally and I had not been thinking about it, I might say, oh, well, I'm still at work. I mean, I'm still doing that, and I've still, got a home. I mean, I would kind of try to spin the positive, but if I really sat down and thought about it, I could list a lot of things that I've lost. So, and I'm not saying that, again, not to cause people to feel more despair, but I think it's part of just, you name what's happened to you, put it down on paper, and then perhaps as a really good counterbalance to that, flip it and say, okay, I've lost this, but I gained this, something simple. I lost being able to go out to eat at my favorite restaurant. I mean, we can do takeout, but some of the restaurants aren't even able to stay open for that. So I've lost that, but I'm cooking more than I've cooked in years, and I'm experimenting and exploring, and there's joy in that. Like, there's joy in that moment. So, with that list of things that I've lost, hopefully I'll be able to see some gains or some things that I've brought into my life that I didn't have before that would counterbalance that loss. But to say it again, I think it's important to name what's happening and to kind of own it. We have to say, I'm feeling this. I have these emotions. They're okay. They're whatever emotions we have related to loss, I think are healthy, are a healthy part of the experience. And the best way to move forward or move through that is to, first of all, embrace it. So I think just,
and there's something that happens, like when it's in your own head, it seems so much bigger, badder, more awful than when you can get it out onto paper and look at it objectively and be like, oh, wait, yeah, this isn't so great. But like you said, when you can look at it and say, okay, my favorite restaurant is not open right now. But look at me cooking food.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember how to do that.
Exactly. And I think, I do think that probably a lot of us also, I'll speak for myself. You carry a lot of sorrow for other people, people
yes,
in our community that I really care about, who have brought so much joy to me because they're in a service industry, or they are chefs or servers in a place of hospitality. And, while I'm missing that, and, oh, poor me, I can't have what I wanted to have to eat, but I mean, they've lost their livelihood. So I feel this kind of overwhelming at times sense of just weightiness for our community and the people who have, who are faced with losses much deeper than what I may have right now. So,
well, but we're not comparing losses, right?
Exactly.
So loss is loss. And so how do how do we take that sorrow for other people? So we're experiencing two different things, right? Our own personal loss, and then
Yes.
also the communal loss
Mhm.
that for others, that other people are experiencing. um how do we deal with that? Do we deal with that in the same way as a personal loss?
I think it's probably a little different because when it's your personal losses, there are various ways that we can work through those emotions and those experiences to kind of move through and gain a little better understanding when we're thinking about our community at large. I think what and I mean I don't know that I practice this always, so I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone else, but to get out of myself, like, to stop being so inwardly focused and really think about those people that I'm concerned for and think of something I could do that might bring just a small moment of joy to them, or a moment of affirmation or encouragement. So, if it's just to write a note, or if it's to, send them a message through Facebook or whatever, and to drop off something on their porch, like a little care package, or, just anything that I might do that might bring just a moment of joy in the midst of the hard things that all of us are facing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mean, I'm noticing, at least in my circle, there's a lot more checking in on people than we've ever done before. Like, we've pre-COVID, we all just ran around, did our thing, and maybe caught up whenever it happened, caught up with somebody. Now people are much more intentional about, let me call this person, let me drop a note for this person, let me check in on my neighbor.
Mhm.
We've not seen that
Yeah, and it's
before.
interesting to me and intriguing to think about what our future looks like.
Mm,
For many people, it's too hard to think about the future right now, but because there is so much uncertainty. But I would hope that out of everything that's going on now, we may keep some of that, with us. That
yeah.
we may be changed in a positive way by these hard things that we're going through, to be more intentional about our relationships and the ways that we reach out to other people. I like to hope that that would be what happens, and I
Yeah.
definitely think life will never be quite the same as it was pre-COVID. So, that hopefully will not be all negative things. Hopefully there'll be some positive as well. So,
Yeah. One of my favorite questions in a time of crisis is, what does this make possible?
yeah.
And what I'm finding, what I'm hearing from you is something that is possible now is that, even as we're all kind of uh, connecting in isolation from our own little pockets, that we are being more intentional about connecting
hmm
with each other. And maybe that's one of the lessons that's coming out of this, is how to slow down and do that, or how to make the time in our busy schedules to do that,
Right.
connect that way. Um, let's talk about dealing with uncertainty. What is your because when someone loses a loved one, hi, whoever's coming in.
Right, that's my dad.
Oh, hey. I love, did you see how slowly he backed away? Oh gosh. Oh, hilarity. Okay. But when someone loses a loved one, uh there's a great deal of uncertainty around that, and we're dealing with that right now globally. What do you advise people just on that tight personal level in
Mhm.
terms of dealing with the uncertainty?
mean the uncertainty of a loved one's health? Is that your specific?
No, I mean, like, when we lose a loved one and suddenly it's like the bottom drops out of everything.
Right.
What do you advise people?
Well, I think that one of the first things that I would say is to not to try to live in the present moment, because thinking too far ahead can be just overwhelming, and it's hard to fathom when you're in the midst of a loss that's life changing, which I
Mhm.
guess all losses are. um, it's hard to imagine what life could be like tomorrow, much less 6 months from now or a year from now. So staying present in that present moment and allowing yourself to feel whatever emotion it is that's rushing over you. Allow yourself to feel that. So, because if we don't allow those emotions to have a voice in some way and try to tamp them down, they're just going to raise their head in some other way. They're always going to be there. So I do think that just again, just focusing on today, this moment, even not even the whole day, but just for this moment, what am I feeling? Where is my head? What are the things that are challenging me? And I think to be patient with yourself, to be patient with the process. It's not something that you move through quickly. Accepting the reality of what's happened is something that takes a period of time. It's not an instantaneous thing. I always marvel at the people who talk about getting closure from a particular thing, experience connected to, let's just say, to death, which I believe in these rituals and ceremonies and things. I believe they have great value, but seeing your loved one after they've died, or having some sort of service or something, people say, "Oh, well, I got closure from that," but I mean, closure to me means you shut the door on something, and I think that those are good ways for a healthy beginning, not closure, because your journey's just beginning when you lose someone, when you go through that. And I'm particularly concerned as a professional about the impact all of the restrictions are having with the families that we've taken care of. I know that I can tell you many families have said, we miss having our community come around. We miss being able to have some way to celebrate our loved one's life in a public way. And it's not about just on the from a funeral home perspective, just from a person, as people. I think that's our nature, is we want to come together when there's a loss. We want to show support and encouragement and receive that support and encouragement, and we can't do that right now. So it's a very challenging time, and I worry a little bit about the emotional health of some people who are going through loss right now, loss through death, death specifically, because they're not able to get the kind of support that they need. But so anyway, I remember your question, going back to it. I think that when the bottom falls out, when you have lost a loved one, I do believe that the most important thing is to live in that moment and embrace those emotions that you have, and let yourself feel whatever it is you're feeling. Nobody should be able to tell you if it's right or wrong, because I don't think there is a right or wrong. I think it's whatever you're feeling is what it is, it's your experience. So
That is so true. And there's no time frame on it, right? So even though we hear, oh, end of April, oh, or in Virginia, June 10th,
sure.
like just because the day comes
Mhm.
that everyone thinks we should be all right, doesn't mean we're all going to be all right.
Exactly. And then, what about the letdown that you feel if that day comes and it gets extended, like
Oh
that.
my God. Yes, I know.
Yeah. But I think
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, just because there's a date out there that they think things may be a little, the
Less horrible.
and doesn't mean
Yeah.
that we're back again. We're not going to go back to what we had before.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we're just not. I know with the Highlands Festival, we announced that we're moving forward as if the festival is going to happen July 24th. But we don't know. Like
yeah.
it might be a virtual online experience. It might be we might be able to do half of what we would normally do. We might be able to do the whole thing, which would be amazing. We just don't know. I mean, coming up with contingency after contingency is
Yeah.
exhausting.
I can only imagine. I mean, to be involved in something like planning events as big as the festival. I mean, the logistics of that, I know it takes a year probably or more.
Yeah.
And so to have that be brought to a halt, it's kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
I feel for you and the challenges you're facing.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I think all
Thank you.
people who are doing nonprofit association type or event type work. It's a real challenge. I know, like in our profession, there are many conferences that were scheduled for this spring that have had to be canceled, and the ripple effect of that, like what that does to the association and the health of the financial health of the association. I mean, there are a lot of things that are very challenging.
Definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about when is it okay to let happiness back in?
Yeah. Well, I would think today, like right.
Yes.
I mean, and let me put that in the context of someone who's mourning a loss, because that's a conversation, like a death loss. That's a conversation I've had frequently. So let's put it. I'll share in that context, and then it would apply, I think, to what we're facing now. But I do believe that the emotions that we have, they're happy ones and sad ones, they're difficult ones and easy ones, and we are all made up of all of those kinds of emotional capabilities, and we all have those kinds of experiences. So trying to stop that, trying to bring joy or happiness to a halt when you're in the midst of something sad can be it takes a while. If you're in the midst of especially loss after a death, it takes a while to feel like your life, like you could even find some sense of purpose for the day or some little bit of joy in the day. But in time, people do find themselves maybe having a moment where their loss is not the only thing that they're thinking of, and they're able to laugh at a funny story or a TV show, or they're able to enjoy being with little kids and laughing and playing. And then I've had people say to me, "Oh, I feel so guilty for being happy in the middle of this very hard time. Like, how could that be? Do people think I don't care, about what happened?" That's not the case. And I think we need to give ourselves permission. I feel like I've said this a lot, but permission to feel what we feel. And so if I have joy in this moment, let me wrap myself around that and feel that joy. And then, because there's going to come another day or another moment when I'm feeling sad again. And as much as I need to lean into that, I need to also embrace the joy. So, so I think that, sorry.
That's okay.
that it's just a real, it's a challenge to try to avoid joy, I guess, like to try to say, I can't be happy or I can't have fun. Let yourself feel that for that moment. And then again, whenever the sadness arises again, maybe you'll be able to have and keep in your perspective that, there is that balance of joy and sadness and in our lives all the time. So in the middle of loss, we can certainly feel that as well.
Yeah. So it's okay to feel our feelings. Yeah. Feel the feelings you feel when you're feeling your feelings.
Yeah. And language that I've heard people use that they've shared with me that I've always really appreciated is I can remember this one gentleman who told me that he was leaning into his sorrow. And I just thought it's a word, I can see that. I can see leaning in, it's like when you're trying to really understand someone and you're having a conversation, you lean in to maybe hear them a little, better or connect better. And so maybe as we do that with our emotions, we become more aware of, what we're feeling. Very rarely do we feel just one thing. Like we're so intertwined. And so, at any given moment, I might feel 4 or 5 different things. And so it just kind of depends on which one's rearing its head the highest, that is the one I focus on. But, in the midst of fear of loss, we feel fear and anxiety and apprehension about the uncertainty of our future. But we also feel, as I said earlier, like joy that we've picked up some new task, or we've learned that, we've practiced a little more self-care than we normally would because we have time to do it, so there's a lot of
found a new hand soap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of well, I'm an optimist,
Mhm.
And I see lots of opportunity in this.
Mhm.
And yes, people are hurting. Yes, we're all, as we as we defined, we are all going through a grieving process
Right.
right now. Um, but we can look at what it makes possible,
Mhm.
at the opportunity, that at the lessons that are waiting for us.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not one of those people who believes everything happens for a reason. I think sometimes junk happens and there it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
But it is possible for us to find a lesson in everything
Mhm.
if
Right.
we choose to.
I think everything, every experience I have builds within me something. And so
Mhm.
I hope that when I face adversity, it's building a strength of character, a resilience that maybe I
Yes.
didn't know I had. And so I think there are a lot of people out there who are seeing that in themselves. I hope they are, that they are stronger than they ever thought they were. They're
Mhm.
able to face this hard time and still have a sense of hope that it will be better one day. And
Mhm.
so that's a wonderful lesson for us just as humanity to recognize that we are strong and we will survive this. We're going to be different, yes, and we're going to have experienced lots of sad things and challenging moments, but we're also going to have had a sense of community that is different than we've had before because we're having to be intentional about it. And so
Mhm.
yeah, so I think that there are going to be some positive things that come from this if if we open ourselves to see it.
Yep. Ah, Kim, thank you. Thank you for this. Is there anything else you want to share with us? Anything that we didn't talk about that would be
Yeah,
important for
not
someone to know?
particularly. I think I mentioned to you, I'll share some resources with you through email that
Yeah.
I found really helpful. And there are tons of podcasts out there and,
Mm,
articles being written, and there's some really good information. But I think,
great.
if nothing else, just, I guess my one thing I would tell people is even if you've never been a journaler, but keep a journal, keep some notes
Mm,
about what's going on in your life right now, because as I said, I believe this experience is life changing for all of us, and it'll be kind of interesting to look back in 10 years and see where we are then, what our life
yeah.
was like then, and maybe we learned from that experience. So I don't know. That's it, and that's a good tool for anybody. I think people who are in grief frequently find a lot of help in journaling. So yeah, so that's one thing I would recommend. But
All right. So keep a journal,
yeah,
if I mean for yourself, but also for maybe your kids, grandkids will be like, "Ooh, what was it like back in
I know back in that
2020 when?" Yeah. Yeah. It's a good reminder, almost like like the Facebook, memories that pop up. You're like,
exactly.
wow, it'll be very interesting to see how we respond 5 years from now when, whatever the version of Facebook is. Uh is like, remember that remember that day in April 2020 when the pandemic. All right. Kim, how can people reach you if they would like to get in touch with you directly?
Okay. Well, you can reach me through. Well, you can call first of all. So my office number. You want me to say the number or just?
If you want, if you care to share it.
No, it's fine. It's so 276-623-2700. And if I'm not there, I can be found. So somebody will connect with me. My email address is my name. So well, it's my initial K, Farris-Luke @gmail.com. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I don't think I'm private. I don't think my kids have said I should be, but I'm not sure I can do that. So anyway, you can message me, and I mean, any way to have a conversation, I'd
Yeah.
be happy to do that. And like I said, I learned so much. That's the best gift of my job is being able to learn from other people. So I would love to have conversations if anybody just need someone to talk about what's going on. And I think we all benefit from those conversations.
Yes. Definitely. Well, thank you. And thank you for your support of the Highlands Festival. Y'all, Farris Funeral Services is one of our sponsors of the festival Celtic Concerts. And we are so grateful. I mean, if you've never been to an Irish wake, this would be, well, we don't have an Irish wake, but you know what I mean? It's a good time in celebration of those we love. But yeah, the festival Celtic Concerts are scheduled for, fingers crossed, July 25th this year. And we've got Tuatha D, we've got Seven Nations, a trio from Seven Nations coming to perform. And we also have our own local Appalachian Highlanders pipe and drum band. So I hope with all of my heart that we can all gather again and see each other face to face. Kim, when I see you, I'm going to tackle you with the biggest hug. I'm a hugger. Y'all, everyone in Abingdon, look out, because once we're allowed to touch each other again, I'm going to be hugging everybody.
Right. So, great.
Fair warning. And if I see you at the festival, everyone's getting a hug from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Becky. Take care.
Well, I hope that was not what you expected it would be. I hope that it was more than you expected it to be. And I'll tell you, my biggest takeaway from Kim is reinforcement of that advice to allow yourself to feel your emotions when you feel them. Because when you push them down or try and back away from them without going through them, it takes so much longer to process through, because you're going to have to go through them at some point. And it's much, it's not easier, but you'll get through it faster if you turn into the storm of emotions to get through it, instead of trying to run away from it and letting it catch up with you later. So that would be my, my tag onto Kim's already amazing advice for us all. If this helped you, please share it with a friend or colleague. Please subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to it, leave us a review so that other people can find it. And reach out to me if you have a question you want me to answer on the podcast about nonprofit or mission-driven leadership. And also, if you have, there's still time to get on the podcast episode about the things we do now. So if you're doing something now that you didn't used to do before, because of social distancing, quarantining, COVID-19ing, then please email me, Becky, at virtualexecutivedirector.com, or message me on any of the social media platforms where you can find me, and let me know what your thing is. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, we shine brighter together.
Follow me down to the river. We can wash our cares away. Don't look back on yesterday. It's only a memory. Follow me.